Ladies and gentlemen, I inform today Pope Francis, born Jorge Mario Bergoglio on December 17th, 1936, in Buenos Aires, Argentina, lived his early years in a modest working class family and death. His father, Mario Jose Bergoglio, was an Italian immigrant who worked as a railway worker, and his mother, Regina Maria Savori, was of Italian descent. Pope Francis's upbringing was deeply shaped by the immigrant experience, and he learned from a young age the value of hard work, resilience, and the need to support others in times of difficulty. Although his family was not affluent, Bergoglio's upbringing instilled a strong sense of faith. From an early age, he felt a calling to the priesthood. His decision to pursue a religious vocation was somewhat unexpected, as he initially studied to become a chemical technician at a local technical school. However, following a severe respiratory illness in his youth, Bergoglio began to discern a deeper calling to follow God's path. At 21, he joined the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits, beginning his spiritual formation at a time when the church and the world were undergoing significant change. During his years of theological study and formation as a Jesuit, Bergoglio encountered a blend of spiritual introspection and rigorous academic training. His Jesuit training shaped him profoundly, developing his intellectual capacity and his understanding of the world through a lens of deep Christian spirituality. He studied in Buenos Aires, then spent a period in Spain, learning about Jesuit spirituality under the guidance of some of the order's leading theologians. He would later reflect on how this formation influenced his papacy, particularly in his approach to governance, humility, and service. Namsar. In 1969, Bergoglio was ordained a priest. He quickly became known for his deep pastoral care and intellectual engagement with the world. As a Jesuit priest, his ministry was centered around his work in education, and he soon became involved with teaching and spiritual formation for young Jesuits. However, it was his involvement with marginalized communities in Buenos Aires that truly defined his early years in the priesthood. In the 1970s, during Argentina's Dirty War, a period of state-sponsored violence and human rights violations, Bergoglio found himself in a complex and dangerous situation. The Jesuit order was seen by the military dictatorship as a political force, and Bergoglio was closely scrutinized for his association with progressive ideas, especially his advocacy for social justice. There were tensions within the church at the time, with some clergy aligned with the government and others in opposition. Bergoglio, though, remained a voice for the poor, speaking out against social inequality, yet also maintaining a balance by advocating for peace and reconciliation. In 1992, he was appointed Auxiliary Bishop of Buenos Aires, where he continued to foster his connection with the people. In 1998, he was appointed Archbishop of Buenos Aires. It was during his time as Archbishop that his reputation as a pastoral leader grew. He was known for his simplicity, commitment to the poor, and his unassuming nature. Archbishop Bergoglio did not live in the grand episcopal residence, but instead lived in a modest apartment and traveled by public transport. His humility was immediately noticeable, and he was seen as someone who embodied the values of Christian service rather than ecclesiastical power. In 2001, Pope John Paul II named Bergoglio as a cardinal. His elevation to the cardinalate marked a significant milestone in his ecclesiastical journey, but it did not change his focus on social justice, simplicity, and the pursuit of holiness in everyday life. Cardinal Bergoglio was a staunch advocate for human rights, peace, and the dignity of all people, regardless of race, nationality, or religion. As cardinal, he continued his deep commitment to ecumenism, dialogue with other faiths, and working for peace in Latin America. As a cardinal, Bergoglio was deeply involved in the church's efforts to address the poverty and inequality that were prevalent in Latin America. His influence within the Catholic Church continued to grow as he became one of the leading voices on the continent, advocating for the rights of the poor and for systemic reforms in both the church and society. In 2012, Bergoglio was named by Time magazine as one of the 100 most influential people in the world, a recognition of his growing global influence. Despite this recognition, Cardinal Bergoglio remained committed to a life of simplicity and service, continuing to live out his belief that the true measure of a Christian leader was found not in their position or power, but in their ability to serve others with love and humility. On March 13th, 2013, after the unexpected resignation of Pope Benedict XVI, Cardinal Bergoglio was elected as the 266th Pope of the Roman Catholic Church. His election was historic for several reasons. He was the first pope from Latin America, the first Jesuit pope, and the first pope to take the name Francis. His choice of the name Francis was symbolic, a nod to Saint Francis of Assisi, who lived a life of humility, poverty, and service to others. Pope Francis's election was seen as a sign of hope for many, particularly in the developing world. His papacy represented a shift toward a more inclusive and compassionate church, one focused on the poor, marginalized, and those who had been excluded from the church's embrace. He immediately set the tone for his papacy by choosing to live in a simple residence rather than the traditional papal apartments. He declined the golden papal cross, preferring a simple iron cross. His inaugural address to the world was a call for mercy, compassion, and service. Service? Only poor church for the poor, he declared, signaling a church that would place the needs of the downtrodden at the center of its mission. From the outset of his papacy, Pope Francis emphasized themes of mercy, humility, and social justice. He spoke out on issues ranging from poverty, inequality, and migration to the need for environmental stewardship. In 2015, he published his landmark encyclical Laudato Si, a passionate call to action on climate change, urging all people to take responsibility for the care of the earth and to be good stewards of the environment. Pope Francis also tackled the issues of sexual abuse within the church, calling for greater accountability, transparency, and pastoral care for victims. His approach to church reform was focused not only on addressing the failures of the past, but on creating a culture of openness, healing, and integrity. One of his most significant actions was his commitment to interfaith dialogue. Pope Francis's historic visit to the United Arab Emirates in 2019 marked the first time a pope had visited the Arabian Peninsula, home to Islam's two holiest cities. The visit underscored his commitment to fostering peace and understanding between Christians and Muslims. Throughout his papacy, Pope Francis sought to reach out to those who felt marginalized by the church, including LGBTQ plus individuals. His words and actions on these issues reflected his belief that the church should be a welcoming place for all, regardless of their background or identity. As Pope Francis entered his later years, he faced several health challenges. He struggled with knee pain and mobility issues, which at times affected his ability to travel and perform certain papal duties. In 2025, his health worsened and he was hospitalized for a lung infection and kidney failure. Despite these health issues, Pope Francis remained active in his ministry and continued to offer his papal blessing, as he did on Easter Sunday, April 20th, 2025. He passed away the next morning, April 21, 2025, at his residence in Casa Santa Marta, Vatican City, in the His death marked the end of a remarkable papacy that had left an indelible mark on the church and the world. Pope Francis will be remembered for his unwavering commitment to social justice, his advocacy for the poor and marginalized, and his efforts to bring about meaningful reform within the Catholic Church. His papacy represented a shift toward a more inclusive and compassionate church, one that prioritized mercy over judgment, love over condemnation. His legacy will continue to inspire future generations of Catholics and people of goodwill, as his example of humble service and deep faith serves as a powerful reminder that leadership in the church is not about power, but about love and sacrifice.